Hello, my name is Tine Stermose and I'm from the International Labour Organization, the ILO. I would like to welcome you to this webinar in celebration of the International Day of Living Together in Peace, which was yesterday on the 16th of May, and to the launching of a new knowledge product that aims to promote peaceful learning for a better working life. The ILO was born from the ashes of First World War and created by a peace treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, with a vision that workers, employers, and governments together could build a world of universal peace based on social justice. Almost 100 years later, in 2017, the annual conference of the ILO adopted a recommendation, number 205, on employment and decent work for peace and resilience. It was a landmark instrument for the world of work, addressing concerns that are at the crossroads of the humanitarian development and peace nexus. It provides guidance to member states on the measures to be taken to generate employment and decent work for the purposes of prevention, recovery, peace building, and resilience with respect to crisis situations arising from conflicts and disasters, but also looking at forcibly displaced populations. In its section on education, vocational training, and guidance, it recommends the adaptation of curricula and the training of teachers and instructors to promote peaceful coexistence and reconciliation for peace building and resilience. Today, ILO's mandate for social justice is more important than ever. Countries that are already experiencing protracted conflict, disaster, climate change, and forced displacement are facing multiple burdens due to the pandemic. The COVID-19 crisis has ignited or exacerbated grievances, discrimination, mistrust, and a sense of injustice over access to health services, decent jobs, and secure livelihoods. These are all potential conflict drivers that could undermine development, peace, and social cohesion. So those living in fragile and conflict-affected contexts, in particular women and forcibly displaced populations, are left further behind. Yet, the great majority of humanitarian development and peace-building programs persist in silos. In fragile and post-conflict situations, oftentimes, little consideration is given to the huge potential of utilizing skills development, not only for economic empowerment, but as a dedicated space to strengthen intergroup contact and social cohesion, and also addressing existing or potential grievances to promote trust and social justice. Indeed, skills development plays a crucial role in the humanitarian development and peace nexus, helping people rebuild their livelihoods, gain employability, and find decent jobs. It's a critical component in ILO's Jobs for Peace and Resilience flagship program and in the Prospects program. The Prospects Partnership is a program that brings together ILO, UNHCR, UNICEF, the World Bank, IFC, and the government of the Netherlands in an effort to support forcibly displaced people and host communities through education, jobs, and social protection. Technical and vocational education and training offers a space where host community members and forcibly displaced people meet, learn together, enhance their economic prospects, and thereby can reinforce social cohesion and peaceful coexistence. This partnership is active in 8 countries in the MENA region and in East Africa. Today, we are launching the guide on promoting social cohesion and peaceful coexistence in fragile contexts through technical and vocational education and training. And we will hear from partner agencies and practitioners from the field who pilot tested it. The guide helps TVET practitioners strengthen their roles as active promoters of social cohesion and peaceful coexistence, and also create inclusive, conflict-sensitive, and diverse learning environments for all. And it helps ILO constituents, workers and employers, governments, and partners and TVET actors to support the role of skills development policies and programs in peace-building efforts through inclusive learning methodologies and the training of relevant core skills. It confirms that peace-building is everyone's business because there can't be any development without peace and no peace without development. Now, let me go to the next item in the agenda. First, we will hear from Raj Bari from Peaceful Change Initiative, who supported the piloting of the guide in prospect countries together with Joan McGregor, and Raj will present the guide. And then we will hear reactions from two of our partners, Clara van Praag, UNHCR Education Officer at the Regional Bureau for East, Horn and Great Lakes, also a partner on the prospects, and Srinivas Kumar, who is the head of the stabilization program at UNDP. A panel discussion that follows will provide insights into the country pilots, and the guide was piloted in Turkey, Kenya, Ethiopia, Jordan, and Uganda, and shall be systematically included in TVET curricula and delivery in fragile contexts, and be a resource to support skills and employment interventions. Lastly, a few words on logistics. The chat is disabled for webinar attendees, but please kindly use the Q&A function if you'd like to ask questions. Panelists will respond to them during the webinar in writing or in person if we have the time. Please also be aware that the webinar is being recorded and will be posted online. Thank you, and Raj, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tina. So a very warm welcome to everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Raj Bari. I'm a peace building advisor working with the Peaceful Change Initiative, and I'm delighted to be part of this webinar to introduce the Promoting Social Cohesion and Peaceful Coexistence in Fragile Contexts through TVET guide. My colleague, Jo McGregor, and I have been working closely with ILO to develop the guide, ensuring that it embeds peace building and social cohesion methodologies and best practice to support TVET in different geographical contexts. A key component of our work has been to support ILO national teams, consultants, and trainers who have piloted the guide in different countries, including Turkey, Kenya, Ethiopia, Jordan, and Uganda. The testing or piloting of the guide has been a critical component for us, and we are indebted to these individuals as the learning they have captured has informed the content of the guide and contributed to the final product. I'm now going to share some slides with you, which I think will help you understand the guide in more detail. So, what is the purpose of the guide? The purpose of the guide really is to provide practical guidance on how to adapt training and deliver this training to mixed groups so we can embed conflict resolution skills, enhance cooperation between groups, and create conflict, sensitive, inclusive, and diverse environments for all. And who is the guide for? So the guide is really for practitioners. And what we mean when we say practitioners, these are ILO constituents who are involved in the delivery and processes of skills policies and programs in fragile contexts. Also, those practitioners involved in program delivery on the ground, so people actually delivering TVET, and also to include practitioners who are involved in the different stages of program delivery, including the curriculum development, developing modules, syllabus design, and training and assessment of learning. The guide is equally beneficial to experienced trainers and those at the early stage of their career. So the way we've designed it, it's very hands-on. There's lots of methodologies and tools which are very practical. And we've basically used evidence-based approaches to make sure that it's as useful as possible to those working in the field. The guide is also aimed at working with organizations. And here what we mean is both private and public, so government agencies and also private organizations such as hotels and so on. We also include workers and employers organizations that provide skills and also support TVET. And this is really to make sure that they can all promote social cohesion and peace building. The guide can really assist organizations in tailoring their approach and making sure that the curriculum design that links decent employment and social reintegration also builds socially cohesive societies. So what's in the guide? In terms of understanding this, the guide is divided into 5 modules, which provides trainers with different tools to analyze and understand group-specific needs, design and implement conflict-sensitive training programs, develop concrete strategies and activities to embed skills for social cohesion, and facilitate the learner's access to support services and measure the impact of socially cohesive TVET training. The first module really focuses on the potential of skills development in peaceful coexistence and social cohesion. And in this module, we're really focusing on defining key concepts such as fragility, conflict, violence, and peace building, and then trying to understand how can skills and employment policies and programs relate to peace building and social cohesion. We also focus on specifying the role of ILO constituents in skills programs and policies for promoting peace through social dialogue. And we specify the role of skills providers and what they can do in fragile contexts. The next module is really, what is the role of the trainer in all of this? And here, the key things that we identify is how do you become a role model or an agent for change? So you're modeling the behaviors that we like to see in our communities. And here we try to help shape peaceful narratives, create enabling learning environments that people we're working with, and be able to use different teaching methodologies according to the learner's needs and capacities. So it's very much focused on the trainer and their development. The third module is cross-curricular. And here we focus on conductive interactive exercises and activities in the workplace to really focus on the emotional skills that we need for this work. And we also plan on making sure that the learning needs are met of individuals who enter the learning environment, and that all the materials are there and in place. Ultimately, this module really helps to process learning using interactive exercises. The fourth module is really to think about what work-based learning contributes to social cohesion in fragile contexts. And here we focus on how do we do the bridging and bonding through the work on the ground to support communities. We provide during, post, and after training support to facilitate trainees' transitions and to improve their reintegration and well-being. And we use tools to really help them think through how do we increase the employability of trainees with these skills and improve possibilities for self-employment. And here there's a real commitment to help learners to focus on their lifelong learning. So what can they do outside of the training to really embed their learning? The fifth module, and this is a critical module, is how do we measure impact? So how do we know this work is having a positive effect both on the learners in the room and in the broader community? And here we really want to focus on how the curriculum has contributed to improving attitudes, behaviors, and perceptions within and between participants. We also want to assess how the curriculum contributes to addressing prejudice and builds relationships within and between communities. And really to ask participants to really focus on their lifelong learning. So learning is a continuous journey that they can contribute to. So really there's 3 key things that this guide does. It addresses the lack of contact, it addresses lack of opportunities, and it addresses grievances and a sense of injustice. And we do this by bringing people together in training classes and strengthening opportunities for dialogue among social group skills, and also help to break down stereotypes and increase social cohesion. In terms of opportunities, we focus on skills development, which really looks at employability and therefore increases opportunities for decent work and income. And finally, through safe training environments and quality skills programs, we look at the grievances and sense of injustice so that people can really start thinking about how do they address this through addressing conflict and thinking about the grievances that are possibly holding them back. And finally, it's so important to mainstream peace building and social cohesion, and TVET is a fantastic opportunity to do this. Peace building and social cohesion is ultimately everyone's business. Mainstreaming these skills through TVET means that these skills can be embedded at all levels of the TVET program and in multiple global contexts. And finally, the added value of integrating innovative evidence-based peace building and social cohesion methodologies into vocational training programs not only maximizes opportunities for increased stability, but critically, it also increases social cohesion within and between groups and communities. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. And I'd now like to hand over to Clara from UNHCR. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. As has already been mentioned, my name is Clara. I'm working for the Regional Bureau in Nairobi. I'm an education officer specifically focused on youth programming. I would like to thank you for giving UNHCR the opportunity to feedback on this comprehensive guide, which I'm sure will become a very valuable resource in strengthening the quality of TVET programs. The guide is not only easy to read, it provides key definitions that are really useful for all practitioners to ensure that we're speaking from the same viewpoint and the same language. For a little bit of background, UNHCR has been collaborating with ILO quite closely to improve and understand programs in fragile contexts for a number of years. And most recently, we collaborated on a TVET study together with GIZ and FCA in 4 countries in the Eastern Horn of Africa, as well as Jordan. And one of the recommendations that came out of that study was to ensure that TVET trainers were upskilled in order to improve the quality of the training provided to the students. This includes components of peace building and social cohesion, as this is a key step towards enhancing the quality of the TVET programs. The guide rightly points out that we can and should leverage the use of these spaces where skills are taught to include these aspects of social cohesion. Uneducated and idle youth constitute some of the biggest risk factors to emerging and continued conflicts in a community. And we see this again and again during elections and other stress factors that lead to displacement. So that at all levels, we are programming for the promotion of peaceful coexistence. From an education perspective, we have included peace education in many of our primary and secondary curriculums. And so it is important that we continue to do so at the post-secondary and informal skills building levels as well. Many refugee youth have been unable to continue their education. Dropout rates in this region remain extremely high due to displacement, but also because of the school closures that happened as a result of the pandemic. So informal and formal technical and vocational trainings are some of the only avenues to gain a livelihood practice. Participation in TVET programs, however, do not necessarily result in a sustainable livelihood, and oftentimes can also be the cause of conflict, as has been outlined in the guide, as graduates don't automatically have access to decent employment. So it is really important that practitioners and learners have understanding of the root causes of this lack of uptake in jobs post-training and develop curriculums that address the socio-emotional skills. There are many different types of short and longer term technical and vocational trainings, but after receiving certification, many youth don't do anything with the skills they have learned because of the lack of viable job opportunities and the lack of right to work in their displacement environments. So it is really important that practitioners and learners have understanding of the root causes of this lack of uptake in jobs post-training and develop curriculums that address the socio-emotional skills. and also the fact that their socio-emotional skills have not been built. In this context, it's not possible to focus solely on the sustainability of their livelihoods due to so many stress factors, including the lack of social cohesion in the community and their own socio-emotional state. So from a field perspective, it's clear that we need to have more holistic programming for youth, particularly refugee youth, in order to address their specific life experiences and ensure that they can use their time in their technical and vocational trainings to also enhance any peace building and conflict resolution skills. Complementary to this initiative, under Prospects, UNHCR has been working on a youth leadership and peacebuilding training program, which cannot be successful unless it is linked to providing youth opportunities for their education and TVET skills. The model of the UNHCR program is quite similar to the ILO guide in that it focuses on equipping the trainers with the skills to facilitate peaceful coexistence projects in and around the community, and it teaches youth to train other youth in better conflict management skills. So together with ILO, we look forward to tackling social cohesion and peaceful coexistence from all angles, be it through the rollout of the TVET guide, which is being launched today, which integrates these skills, or through dedicated programs like the ones I just mentioned, which needs to be closely linked to TVET programming. The ILO guide contributes to ensuring we can the needs of people fragile and content, so that it's equipping them not only with the technical skills that they need to succeed, but also the soft skills that are built to living together peacefully. So that is it from our side, and I believe that my colleague from UNDP has some comments as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Clara, and thanks, Raj. I've been losing both of you, so let me switch off my video. If that is the case, I could not actually catch both of you. I don't know whether I'm clear. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, you are clear.
Thanks, thanks for that presentation, Raj. I think the guidance note actually comes at a very right stage, especially when there is not much of a guidance available on the TVET areas and linking it to the peace building initiatives in crisis and fragile settings. This is one gray area that has been left out for a long time. And we also see that peace building initiatives, we need to find entry points at every point of time. There has to be entry point. This is a big entry point, and this has been left out. And this is a great initiative from ILO side, and the guidance comes at the right time. And the guidance, of course, rightly gives the guidance on the skill set that required for the trainers, and also with all kind of approaches, especially the do no harm approach, which is required when approaching these kind of mixed groups. It is not just another training. People really require skill sets to deal with these people, and the subject is quite sensitive. Putting this kind of people in the room and actually talking to them on the issues of conflict, and I think the issue of conflict sensitivity is quite important. In that context, I think this guide also comes very handy for UNDP. Most of UN agencies like UNDP, UNHCR, IOM, and all of us, we actually roll out so many TVET programs, and that I think peace building element has been missing there, and it's a great opportunity to actually to have this guide. In that context, UNDP also developed a guide on the strengthening of social cohesion and conceptual framework and programming, which more or less supplements this kind of a guidance if they're complementary in nature. This particular guide, of course, talks more of assessments, methodologies, and also the issues of measurements. But I think there could be a lot of synergies in that context, especially when UNDP and ILO have signed the framework of action under which social cohesion and dialogue is a major issue, is a key area. and this particular TVET and peace building nexus could be one of the major issues in that context. Uh, I would also like to see what kind of innovations could be brought into these. Innovation also was one of the issues which was highlighted under the program of action which was signed between the ILY and UNDP. There were a couple of initiatives from UNDP side, and I thought of actually quoting examples from different countries, but given the interest of time, I would say that I will go for Sudan and maybe for Iraq. Let me start with Iraq, and if I have, start with Sudan, and if I have time, I'll go for Iraq. When in Sudan, there was a revolution, and a lot of young women actually led the revolution. They're quite, some educated, some uneducated. Some were actually picking up the tear gas shells and throwing back to the police. And some were standing at the cars in front of army headquarters. Some were disabled, still actually participating in the revolution. So at the end of the day, what we have done is we brought all of them together, and in a TVET program, which is focusing on digital coding. The interesting part is that we have not forced a curriculum on them. We actually asked them to discuss and come with ideas. So they came with ideas, and it was more of a reflective methodology that neither a kind of a framework on peace building was imposed on them, or a TVET program was imposed on them. So they came with ideas, and at the end of the day, we only facilitated giving that kind of skill sets for them to think, to come with ideas. So they came with excellent ideas on the issues of coding with regard to disaster management, waste management, helping disabled children, digitizing the artworks, graffiti that was done during the revolution. So they came with a lot of ideas. They came with their own kind of projects, which surprisingly were, even before we thought of funding, they were all funding. They got the funding from different sources. But the important point there was they came with an idea of starting a platform. Here I wanted to say that we look at the trainees as a target group, but I see that they're also a resource group, just not a target group. They can be the agents of change, not just the trainers, but they themselves can become the agents of change. So they came with an excellent platform, which is called ICE, that is empowering young women for enriching Sudan. So they came with this platform, and the platform aims at two streams of work. One is the peace building at higher level peace processes. And the second one was at lower level peace processes. The higher level peace processes is like they actually had this group, and then appealing to the non-state actors, the rebel groups, the government, on what the youth of Sudan thinks as far as peace building and social cohesion and peaceful coexistence is concerned. So they were sending these messages to them. So what we have done is actually giving them the basic skill sets, but they came with the idea at the end of the day. The second part was they became the agents of change, that they went to the rural areas, taught the women who to participate in the peace building process, taught the youth to participate in the local peace building processes. So in a way, the reflective methodology also is quite important. We have seen that happening. The experience also comes from the issue of literacy. Most of the TVET programs, we have literacy as a component. And ultimately, within 2-3 months, we cannot make somebody literate. So when we actually examine that aspect, it came out very clearly. It is not literacy, but it is functional literacy, which is important. That means basically they reflect what is required for them to interact with the socio-economic environment. If they have to use a mobile phone, and that is where that is required for them to interact with the socio-economic environment, we teach them only how to use a mobile phone. So I think the reflective methodology is also very important when it comes to the peace building part. And they have to actually come up with kind of methodologies the approaches, rather than actually we imposing from the UN side that this has to be the kind of framework at the end of the day. Let me stop here. Maybe during question and answer sessions, given my time, I think I already exceeded. I'll stop here, and then during question and answer sessions, maybe I can come with some more points. Thank you. Over to you, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Kumar, Clara, for your great contributions. It's really good to see how the guide resonates with your work in both your agencies, and there's a lot of scope for collaboration. So my name is Christine Hoffman. I work for the ILO in the Skills and Employability branch and have the great pleasure of moderating this next panel now, which will provide insights into the field testing of the guide. So I'd like to invite all panelists to now switch on their videos as well, so that we can all be together and discuss how the pilots have taken place, what your impression was. On how it can actually help TVET trainees to become agents of change as well, as Kumar said. So the very first time we have piloted the guide and we've trained TVET trainers on becoming promoters of social cohesion and peaceful coexistence was in Turkey in December 2019. And that pilot took place within the ILO's refugee program in Turkey in collaboration with our colleagues in Ankara. And we worked with trainers who included Syrian refugee youth within the Turkish apprenticeship program. So we learned a lot in that pilot, adjusted the draft guide, and then tested it further within the Prospects program in 4 countries, including in Ethiopia. Now on the panel, we'll hear from the pilots in Uganda, Kenya, and Jordan. And these pilots in the Prospects countries have been very skillfully supported by our experts from Peaceful Change Initiative, Raj Bari, who you've already met now in the webinar, and Joan McGregor. So on the panel, I have the pleasure of now introducing to you our experts. We have Ms. Catherine Muzuku, Dean of Students from Kenya Technical Trainers College. We have Ms. Jihan Morgan, a very experienced TVET trainer from Jordan who's worked with multiple mixed groups, accompanied by her interpreter, Ms. Hassan. So Ms. Jihan will introduce herself, and then Ms. Hassan will read out her statement. Ms. Jean Byamugisha, Executive Director of Uganda Hotel Owners Association, with whom we partner as well on an exciting pilot program on apprenticeship in the tourism sector. And Mr. Ernest Nadome, Assistant Secretary General of the Central Organization of the Trade Unions in Kenya, who is a worker representative very knowledgeable of the work of the ILO. And last but not least, Mr. Lam Cosmas, a highly experienced peace facilitator from Uganda who's worked in the region in many conflicts and who was the facilitator of the pilot training in Uganda. So before asking my first question now to Catherine Muzuku, I'd like to invite you all, our webinar attendees, to make use of the Q&A function, please, and post your questions, including on the contributions from UNHCR and UNDP we heard before. So Catherine, you work for the Kenya Technical Trainers College and participated in the pilot training.
Yes.
What was your overall impression of the training, and how could the guide help strengthen the role of TVET in Kenya to act as a promoter of cohesion and peaceful living together?
Well, thank you so much. I'm Catherine Muzuku from Kenya Technical Trainers College in Nairobi, Kenya. May I start just by appreciating you're allowing us to participate in this forum, and mostly in the guide, the piloting. My colleagues have really appreciated, and they told me to tell you that they really learned so much. I'm the Dean of Students in KTTC. You've asked a question about the impression that we had in the training, and I would say most of us have trained for many years, and we were surprised that we are yet to learn so much, and that guide taught us a lot. And especially knowing and considering that KTTC trains almost all the trainers who teach in technical institutions, in TVET institutions. 80% of the trainers right now in those institutions pass through our hands in KTTC. And very soon, as you may have heard, the ministry actually is working around the clock to make sure that after 3 years, the trainers come back to KTTC for refresher courses. So meaning that actually this training, this guide is actually needed in KTTC very much, so that we are able to use this guide to pass the message to our trainees who are now the trainers in the TVET institutions. And once we pass this to the trainers, then it will be very easy for it to spread in the TVET institutions. Because once it's included in the curriculum, then it becomes very easy. And we've gone through it as we are doing the piloting, and whatever we were taught, we looked at it and we realized that this is very important information that the teachers need to have to be able to tackle most of the issues that are out there that we've always wondered how we can tackle, especially those who are teaching in areas where there are conflicts and so on and so forth. Now, the training was an eye-opener for us. It introduced us to a common language of thinking about particular situations as a team, and provided us with some tools to help us start thinking about conflict and violence. Most of us just teach without even thinking about such situations. We wait until when there's violence, there are conflicts, is when we wake up and we are rushing to go for trainings, we are rushing to go and help, when we are actually supposed to have started this right at the beginning as we are training the trainers and as the trainers are training other students. But if we did it early, then it will be very, very easy. Now, this particular training that we had helped us to analyze situations at our workplace, and that is KTTC, systematically, and also prepare us to make systematic choices over our actions in our departments, even because you start from your departments. When we talk of conflicts, we don't just mean the big conflicts between tribes and so on. Conflicts should start, they usually start from at a very lower level, as in even colleagues, departmental, your colleague. How are you going to handle this situation? There is a timetable. You are colliding over the fact that I want to teach at 8 o'clock and this other one wants to teach at 8 o'clock. And those are conflicts. But if we had, we take our students through that, our trainees through that before they go out there, then they will learn how to solve some of these problems that we come across. The training also helped us to separate our understanding of conflict and violence. And what we loved most about this particular one, it was not just about theory, it was not just about knowledge, but we were doing almost everything practically. We learned, I would say we were not bombarded with information. You go for a training and you're asking yourself, a workshop, a seminar, and you're asking yourself, surely, what is all this? But this one, we didn't ask ourselves so much about that because that was not very little information, but we were not bombarded with information. What we did most of the time was discussing, doing it practically, doing it in groups. And that was actually participatory. It was not a matter of getting from the facilitator, which really impressed us a lot. The approach of the training actually was purely participatory approach that allowed us to provide the content, to provide exercises, to discuss freely, and even give a lot of information. So we would say that actually we were very, very impressed, and we are convinced that if this is brought on board in our institution, then it can go a long way in actually helping us and helping many other people who are undergoing this, what we call the conflict. You asked me to answer a question on overall on the role of TVET in Kenya as far as this is concerned, the guide is concerned, and actually it will strengthen the role of TVET in Kenya. And I'll keep repeating that when we talk of TVET, it is actually KTTC. I'm proud to say so because it is us who are holding these people and releasing them out. Like right now, we have so many of our teachers here now, those we are training, and we are soon releasing them. There are those who are online, there are those who are face-to-face and so on. So if this was done, and I'm thinking we need to do it as soon as possible. So I'm thinking this will actually strengthen the role of TVET, because the main objective of TVET is to develop an effectively coordinated and harmonized TVET system that is capable of producing quality skilled human resource with right attitudes, values that are required for growth and prosperity in various sectors of the economy. Because that is where we are going to in Kenya. It's taken too long to realize that actually we need TVET. And that's why you find it serves multiple purposes. And despite that, we may find that we have challenges, which we also think that if we got this guide, then actually it would help us. Because we have issues, challenges with labor market demands and trends. Remember, we really have to work with organizations. Our trainees have to go out there. Usually they go on attachment in organizations. Now, if we teach them on conflict and resolution, on violence, then as they go out there, they'll spread the same message. They'll be able to cope with whatever situation that they will come across. We are talking about migration flows. Those are challenges that we are having that need to be addressed. Providing broader competencies along special skills. We have skills. What are we doing about it? And you find all these, there are conflicts, there are violences, and so on. Globalization is there. Again, we need that so that we are able to prepare these students. Promoting social equity and inclusive workplace. What are we doing about workplace? And I've already given an example of how people are working and relating to one another. We have to start there before even we go out. Now we have social cohesion that is very important. We have what we call social justice and many others. We can go on and on and on and on. But the most important thing is that in TVET, we need this guide to be included in the TVET curricula so that we'll have to gain, and it will strengthen the role of TVET actually when we bring it in. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for your strong message and also for speaking on behalf of your colleagues. As you said, you've really consulted with everyone to convey a joint message, and we're really fortunate to be working with you as an institute that can really shape TVET in Kenya. I would now like to turn to our Jordan pilot and to Jihan Morjan. So you participated as a TVET trainer. Can you tell us what you learned personally from the training and how you're going to apply the guide's recommendation and tools in your own TVET teaching practice? So we from Ms. Morjan, first a short introduction, and then Ms. Hassan will convey the message in English.
أول شيء السلام عليكم. أنا جيهان رح أحكي تجربتي وبشكر منظمة العمل الدولي على إعطائنا هاي الفرصة عشان نحكي عن التدريب.
This is Ms. Jihan Morjan. She's going to talk about her experience and would like to thank you for the opportunity that you've given us.
رح أحكي لكم بس دقيقة عن إحنا إيش بنشتغل مع مين، ورح نبلش نحكي عن إيش استفدنا من منظمة العمل الدولي. هلا إحنا مؤسسة بنشتغل مع الفئات المهمشة لنا تقريبا 12 سنة، وبنشتغل مع اللاجئين وبنشتغل مع الأميين، وبنركز أكثر إشي على اللاجئين والأميين والأحداث والنساء السكس وركر.
We're gonna firstly, but just briefly speak about our organization, our center. It works on working with fragile communities, groups, such as the refugees, the illiterate, the vulnerable women, and sex workers as well.
هلا احنا رح نحكي عن الاشياء اللي استفدنا منها، اللي هي كان اهم شيء بالنسبه لنا، اللي هي انه احنا استفدنا من منظمه العمل الدولي هي تيسير عمليات التعليم وتطوير المهارات فيها مشترك في التماسك الاجتماعي والتعايش السلمي.
First of all, what we got from this project, from this training, was that we facilitate the teaching skills, and we also developed a shared understanding of these skills and we reinforced them.
انه كمان من خلال التدريب حسينا بمعاناة الفئات المهمشة اللي ما كانوا يحسوا بالعدالة، فهذا كان التدريب انه لفت انتباهنا لهي النقطة وحاولنا انه نصير نطبقها في المؤسسة.
Through the training, we felt the suffering of those marginalized, those fragile communities and groups. And so this program helped us notice these groups. And so we've tried to help them as well.
كمان إنه الدليل كان سهل وميسر على المدربين في عملية التدريب وتعليمهم للمدربين، تدريب المدربين.
Through this guide, it helped us, not only us, the trainers, but the directors, but also it simplified the education process for also the trainers that will deal with these groups, with these strategies.
كمان إنه إحنا اكتسبنا القدرة على تقييم التحديات اللي بتواجه الفئات المهمشة واللي كانت تأثر على التدريب.
We also gained the ability to manage and evaluate the challenges that face these various and marginalized communities and groups, and that may affect the training.
كمان إنه إحنا استفدنا على تحسين إدارة الصراع اللي كانت بين المجتمع، بين اللاجئين والمجتمعات المستضيفة والفئات المهمشة.
We also gained the ability to improve conflict management that may occur among the refugees and other communities.
والفئات المهمشة.
And also the marginalized groups.
كمان استفدنا إنه في تغيير سلوك إنه وتعديلها مع الكبار بالسن والأميين وكسر حاجز بين الطرفين، بين اللاجئين والمستضيفين.
It also helped us work and understand the behaviors of others, like elderly, and how we worked with them and break the deadlock that was between both parties, the refugees and also the other categories in that group.
كمان تمكنا من خلال التدريب إنه الإسقاط على نقاط القوة عندنا، تطويرها، ومن خلال التدريب كمان استفدنا إنه نشوف وين الخلل اللي عندنا ونقاط الضعف عندنا على أساس إنه نحسنها في المراحل الجاية إن شاء الله.
This training also helped us notice and strengthen our strength points at the center, and also notice those weakness points and work on them and enhancing them as well.
طبعا إنه تمكنا من العمل مع الفئات المهمشة الهشة ودمجهم وتدريبهم وإعادتهم مرة ثانية للمجتمع من خلال التدريبات.
Through the training, we were always also able to deal with fragile communities and groups that we help them through the training to guide them and help them to participate in the training and just help them guide them through to deal with the community itself.
كمان الدليل والتدريب لفت انتباه أن نحط صندوق شكاوي في المؤسسة ونستمع أكثر للاجئين والفئات المستضيفة ونعمل على إدارة الصراعات بين الفئتين.
It also helped us notice to pay more attention, shed more light on listening to the refugees, and put a complaints box to listen to all of their complaints and just take all of the feedback from this training, and also it helps us manage the conflicts if they ever emerged.
إنه إحنا هلأ من خلال التدريبات تمكنا من تعزيز التماسك والتعايش السلمي مع الفئات الهشة اللي إحنا نشتغل معها. شكرا.
This training also helped us where we were able to promote social cohesion and peaceful coexistence and within these vulnerable groups. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you've highlighted a number of important points, in particular the sort of self-reflective nature of the guide. So it really should make the participants be more aware of their own acts as how they can act as role model and hence influence their own communities. I'd now like to move to Ms. Jean Byamugisha to Uganda, who's representing the Uganda Hotel Owners Association that, as mentioned, partners with a tourism training college to implement an apprenticeship training for the tourism sector. So trainers within this program have joined the pilot training in Uganda. How do you see the value of the guide for employers? Over to you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody, from wherever you are attending from. So first of all, for us, we are very, very happy to have this because this is the first time that we have an activity like this in our entire country. Something that is targeted, to the refugees and the host communities, so that they don't only just get the basic kind of training that they usually get, but then they can also get the kind of training that will mainstream them into, that will guide them into mainstream employment, so that they can be able to be proud of the jobs, they can be able to build careers, they can be able to set bigger goals, and most importantly, be able to be an inspiration to the other people. I love the fact that the guide really highlights cooperation with the private sector. Usually what happens is the big organizations like the ILO, they work directly with government, and then many times the private sector is excluded, yet the private sector are actually the implementers. Government offers us an enabling environment, the development partners come and offer the funding, but the people who actually do the boots on the ground are usually either given little or no attention. So I love the fact that the guide actually does highlight involvement with the private sector, partnerships with the private sector. And for us as a country, this is something that we are extremely proud of, because I think this is the first time that you have a big organization like ILO directly working with the private sector. And the results are already there to be seen. For an apprentice program, first of all, apprenticeship is completely new in the entire country. But for a program like this, being ambitious enough to say, we are going to start with 100 apprentices. And they have now all been recruited, of course, with support from the government. They have been recruited. They are awaiting to, they have already been placed in different hotels. So come 1st of June, they will be dispatched to the training institutes and actually go to these hotels to start working. It's really quite a big deal that actually we are looking at even having the head of state launch this kind of program. And that's really a big deal, because we have got very many other young industries, manufacturing, oil and gas, that can be able to replicate something like this. So for us, the pressure is really high. And fortunately enough, we have the guide to be able to show us the way so that we can be able to get this right, because there are other stakeholders who are looking and waiting to see how they can be able to come on board going forward. So for now, that's it. We are very proud to have the apprentices in place. They have been recruited. We have the training institutes ready to receive them, the hotels ready to receive them. The next activities, we are going to carry out a few training programs for the supervisors in the hotels to be able to welcome them, train them, and again, make sure that they are all committed to ensuring that come graduation day for the apprentices, we have a product that we can be very proud of to be able to present to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world. Really, this is something I'll be very proud to come and give a report on how it actually went, how we did it, what were the challenges, but most importantly, what were the successes? Because what we feared were going to be the challenges were the challenges at the beginning. And we've managed to overcome all those, because I think this is one of the best examples that we can show that how government can work very well with the private sector, very well with the development partners to produce a product that is hopefully going to actually be self-sustaining in future. What we are looking at now is to see how year one goes, but really by year 3, we want to make sure that this is a self-sustaining program that is cascaded to other industries, that is actually even funded by the private sector, so that we can be able to have longevity on the program and not be like many other programs that maybe stop after the funding has been cut short. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for sharing these important insights from Uganda. I mean, social cohesion is about working together in peace, and that's the day we are commemorating or living together in peace today. But TVET is also about partnership between the private sector, the government, and the workers. And so we're very happy and glad to have Ernest Nadome with us from Kenya, who represents the workers in Kenya. And you regularly work with the ILO in the context as well of the Prospects program. So could you tell us how workers' organizations can actively contribute that TVET is both inclusive and also attractive, and help promote social cohesion in society? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Christian. My name is Ernest Nakenya Nadome. I'm a workers representative at the National Center, that is KOTU. I'm the first Assistant Secretary General. Let me start by congratulating you and ILO for coming up with this particular guide. And I think that has been put very well with the previous speakers. For us as workers, and I think this particular guide is really going to solidify industrial relations, because currently in the country, or let me just start by appreciating TVET. TVET, I think, various statutes, Kenyan Constitution, the various blueprints that are there, they have come out very strongly, especially when we got the new Constitution in 2010. The government has really put a lot of focus on TVET, and even other institutions that have been created. And I'm happy that Madam Msuko put it very well, the role of the role that the institution is playing is key. We also have other institutions, almost 2 or 3 of them, where their representation is tripartite in nature, and maybe namely one is called NITA, National Industrial Training Authority, which I was able to serve for almost 10 years as a director, representing Kenyan workers. We also have Kenya National Qualification Framework Authority, which is still is a TVET. It's more of a TVET institution that was created recently to try and merge the skills, to try to recognize prior learning. And if you critically look at these particular institutions that workers, their representation is tripartite in nature, we've had cordial industrial relations, because the fact that workers are represented in these particular organizations right from at the helm, that is at the director board level, it has really enabled the workers. It has enabled even the tripartite partner to be able to resolve issues amicably. And that is the very reason why now this particular guide, I think in Kenya, I would want to say that TVET per se, we have had challenges. And the challenges we have in Kenya is one of them. The obvious one, the issues of financial. There is a fragmented legal framework, which often lead to duplication of responsibility at both national and county level. there's a weak linkage between training institutions and the industry, hence a critical skills match. And this is an area that the government is putting a lot of energy together with the social partners really to address this particular issue. We're also having challenges of lack of capacity to generate and utilize labor market information, hence inadequate skills anticipation. So this is something that through the support of ILO, there is what the labor information market system that is being worked on, though it has taken very long, but we hope ultimately this will be able to address this issue. There is also slow integration of digital skills into the TVET system, hence increased unemployment of the youth. This is another major challenge we have. There is also expansion of informal training, yet with no proper recognition of prior learning. So, and then interest in the youth are interested more in activities that generate money very fast. So these are areas and many others. So to us as workers during this labor market disruption that has been caused by COVID-19, I think this is the time now we really have to focus more on upskilling, reskilling, and this will really go a long way in helping the issues of peace, cohesion. If there's any party or institution that really do advocate for peace, is the social partners, because through that engagement, the trade union engaging, sitting down with the employer, I think we play a critical role in really bringing about peace, coexistence, and all that. So I think for us, we are for it, and this particular guide will help us. Though the biggest challenge also we have, and it cuts across Africa, is the issue of informality. The issue of informality. The informality in Kenya, you're talking of almost 85% of the workers are in the informal sector. So this particular guide, with the support of our various governments, I think we should be able to sit down critically now, unpack this particular guide and make sure that it is implemented to the letter. I think I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for reminding us of the power of social dialogue for peaceful coexistence and social cohesion in the context of TVET and beyond. Our last panelist, and sorry, we're running slightly late, is Lam Cosmas, the facilitator of the pilot in Uganda and a very experienced peace facilitator in the region. Let me also quickly mention that accompanying the guide that has been published, we have also produced a facilitator guide to sort of make the live facilitators then hopefully when we're using the guide in other countries easier. But so now, Lam, you led the pilot, and what would you say are your main takeaways from this pilot? How do you think that the experience in Uganda can be sustained?
Thank you very much. My name is Lam Muriam Cosmo. I'm really facilitating this region. See, one is under the two concepts. The concept of social cohesion. For me, that was very important. And then the second aspect concept was peaceful coexistence, which is about peace building. And this entails, again, two things, that peace and peace building are deliberate. So these two concepts is about something to be done deliberate. It should not be taken for granted. And I think it also came out in the introduction by ILO on the genesis of developing this task. That's number one. Number two take home was about delivery of this peaceful coexistence dream, let me call it dream, through TVET. And I see TVET as the space, TVET as an infrastructure for nurturing peace and peace building. And then number three take home is the need for buy-in by TVET practitioners and partners. And here, it has made me very happy when I hear from the other colleagues, from the trade unions and from my sister, Diamugisa. So it is very important that there must be buy-in by these practitioners. Our colleague from the trainers had said before, they go and just deliver the subject of TVET, but now they have to incorporate social cohesion and peaceful coexistence. And these are soft values. These are attitudinal, which should be linked with the skills. And on the third one, still on the buy-in, it brings into our mind model number 3, which is about interaction and emotional skills. So for me, these are the 3 take-homes that I got from this training provided by TVET, by the guide for TVET trainers. Now, numbers, the second part is about sustainability. On the issue of sustainability, I would like to use the term nurturing. How do we nurture this child? The child has been born. How do we nurture it? I again see 3 things. Number 1, what is or what would be the role of ILO? I see the role of ILO as an animator, an accompaniment to these practitioners. And this again takes us to the idea of model number 4, that is about work-based learning. So what is the role of ILO? ILO still has a role to animate, to support, because it is not just a one-off. If it is a one-off, the experience of the training is so nice, but after that, how are they incorporating it? How are they living it in a day-to-day experience so that they cannot be overridden by the aspects of profits? The last speaker talked about immediate income. Also, the private sector is about making money. How will we guard against, making money more than incorporating social cohesion? That's number 1, sustainability. Number 2 is an emphasis that the guide is a companion. I also like that. So that while we need model number 2, trainer, as a model. I've emerged myself into this process because I'm living as a model in this. I happen to have lived as an IDP, so I know the experience of forced displacement. I've been interacting and working among refugees in northern Uganda, where I live in Arua, West Nile, working with host communities and refugees. So how do we be models? How do we help the trainers to really live what they teach? Because peace and peaceful coexistence is not theory. These are practical aspects. And number 3, take home, is about mutual and peer support. I was happy that at the end of the training, the trainees, the trainer trainees, together we developed a community of practice. And that was one of the concepts that they really loved. A community of practice whereby people live these values, these virtues. So for me, those are the 3 aspects that will help in the sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lam. I also very much support your last point, the community of practice, that we can think of at different levels as well, right? At the level of your country application, but also we as practitioners and international community, we should also build a community of learning. And well, all I can do is just thank you for all your insights, sharing your experience, joining this this webinar. I think it was a very nice and inspiring group, and we look forward to continuing working with you in your countries to make TVET a hub for social cohesion and peaceful coexistence, and have TVET really deliver an inclusive training space for all. And now I hand over to Srinivas Reddy, the Chief of the Skills and Employability branch, and then after him to Mito Tsukamoto, the Chief of the Development and Investment branch of the ILO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you to all the colleagues who have joined the very important meeting. First of all, let me congratulate Raj, Christine, and all the colleagues who have contributed to this very, very useful guide on promoting, as the colleague just spoke, highlighting the two words, social cohesion and peaceful coexistence. Very, very important words indeed to really make a contribution in whatever way we may. As we heard from the experiences of Jordan, Uganda, Kenya, and also Ethiopia, and even in Turkey, where this is applied, I'm so glad to hear that this is found to be useful, and the feedback from the trainers seems to be very positive. I would like to extend my warm greetings and thanks to all these colleagues who have taken the initiative to pilot it. Let me also thank our colleagues from all the field offices, projects, and programs, and particularly the representatives of the governments, employers, and workers' organizations, and the training and education providers who are on the call, but also who have contributed. I think this is an excellent collaborative effort of the skills and the DevInvest in the employment policy department. But I also want to really acknowledge the great support that we receive from the partners, the UNHCR and UNDP, who in really championing the cause. I just would like to raise only a few issues, having heard, the experts and the trainers and the authors. Just a few issues on skills development for this, particular target groups that we are talking about. Providing skills to people in vulnerable situations has become an even more pressing issue because of the COVID pandemic. Disadvantaged people are further marginalized, in particular, forcibly displaced people, minority groups, people with disabilities, or those working in the informal economy. Countries need to invest more in relevant and quality skills and lifelong learning to assist those who lost their livelihoods because of shutdowns, economic downturn, or because they had to care for sick relatives. In addition, as you all know, millions of young people are at the age of entering the labor market, but lost opportunity to learn skills. Some of these people are referred to as lockdown generation. Because of the schools and training centers are closed, they need particular attention, and skills development and TVET are particularly suited to facilitate their entry into the world of work. As ILO has always promoted non-discrimination as one of its fundamental principles and rights at work and within the training space. So this new guide, I'm so glad that is a very, very practical tool to improve living together in peace, the International Day we are commemorating today. I would like to raise three particular issues after listening to also the employers and workers' representatives. We need to pay particular attention to the needs and aspirations of the people. I think this is very, very clear. This guide is a very solid contribution looking at the particular needs of the target groups that we are talking about. Therefore, the entire training package has to be tailor-made and customized to the target groups. And I'm so glad that the trainers and the education providers have taken that message and are willing to first transform themselves to transfer the skills to the people who are actually going to use the skills. Second, I think it is also very important that the guide is making a very good contribution in championing the core skills. It helps build the trainer's competence on embedding core skills, social, emotional, and cognitive, within the teaching practices. These core skills are, desperately needed among trainees in fragile contexts. It is very, very important, actually, because people in fragile contexts do possess core skills and they bring their own set of skills. And by really sharpening those skills and adding a certain set of additional skills can make them employable, but also contribute to a peaceful living and a cohesive society. The third dimension of any skills training programs, for that matter, has to be really demand driven, market driven. How can one make it happen? Particularly, it is very hard in fragile settings, and let us say refugee populations. I visited one refugee training center, providing some training programs to the refugees, and asked them where are they going to be employed after this. Nobody knows. Nobody, including the trainees, trainers, administrators. Nobody knows, because as the colleague from the UNHCR mentioned, there are problems of lack of job opportunities in the vicinities and lack of right to work. So I would like to appeal to all the panelists and all the colleagues who are on the call to really, we need innovative solutions to tailor-make the training program based on market demand, depending on the local situation. I think one key question always before opening any new training course is to ask where these people are going to use these skills. Is it in the local market or global market? How are they going to use these skills? Who is going to facilitate access? Do they have access or not? And second question, how can we shut down this program when it is no longer relevant to the market? These two questions are very important. I'm sure most of you are thinking about it. But also would like to raise the issue that these people in fragile situations, these people can no longer be left behind in terms of really access to new markets. The ILO's Future of Work Commission predicted that the future economies, the new economies, digital economy, care economy, and green economy, that are going to create hundreds of millions of jobs, in addition to the regular jobs, in addition to the economies that are in demand in your own setting. Rural economy continues to be very important for most part of Africa and Asia, but we cannot leave these people behind without providing them access to new jobs in digital economy, care economy, and green economy. My question is, maybe is there an opportunity for these people, wherever they may be, if they are skilled and if they're provided with access to the equipment and bandwidth, probably they can also work from home and really, even when they have physical barriers in terms of access to jobs and access to markets or access to rights to market, maybe can they produce to the global economy from their own setting, even if it is a camp, and be part of the global economy. I think this guide opens such possibilities to think about, really providing tailor-made, demand-driven courses. Of course, this training is market-driven, but at the same time, the core skills are for well-being. So the skills development not only for employment, but for peaceful coexistence and well-being. I'm so glad. I want to thank our colleagues in the skills branch and DevInvest and our DDGP office and the collaborators, the UNDP and the UNHCR. We want to further extend these services to hundreds of millions of people. There is a strong need, and I want to thank our constituents, employers and workers' organizations and governments in making this possible. Thank you very much, Christine.
Thank you, Srinivas. Mito, right over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Christine.
Thank you.
I was waiting for the cue. So, we've come to the end of our event today, and I also would really like to thank the organizers, the great panelists, and our guests who've shared their rich experiences, as Srinivas mentioned, from Kenya, Jordan, Uganda, who are with us, and our online audience, for your participation to this rich discussion on promoting social cohesion and peaceful coexistence in fragile contexts through TVET. My name is Mito Tsukamoto. I'm the chief of the Development and Investment Branch, where the ILO's Coordination Support Unit for Peace and Resilience, what we call the CSPR, is housed. This joint publication, as Srinivas has also mentioned, was a really fruitful collaboration between our skills colleagues and the CSPR colleagues, and was very much designed under the Partnership for Improving Prospect for Host Communities and Forcibly Displaced Persons. It's a great collaboration to stress the importance of vocational education and training in these very fragile settings. So I wanted to start these concluding remarks with just a small reminder of the recommendation 205, which was mentioned by Tina earlier. Employment and decent work for peace and resilience mentioned specifically in one of the paragraphs, 19, and I quote, "In preventing and responding to crisis situations, members should, where appropriate, adapt curricula and train teachers and instructors to promote peaceful coexistence and reconciliation for peace building and resilience." So very much in the ILO framework. As it was also mentioned by her introductory remarks, building on our century-long experience in promoting decent work for peace, the ILO is very much very much guided by the ILO's recommendation 205. In 2016, the ILO also launched what was called the Jobs for Peace and Resilience, the JPR flagship program, which is a platform that contributes to building more peaceful and resilient societies in these fragile situations. The JPR flagship is a programmatic example of ILO's approach to the humanitarian development peace nexus. The JPR is founded on this modular local resource-based approach, which is combining employment-intensive investments, technical, vocational, and entrepreneurial skills and training, employment services to respond to the needs of the most vulnerable, including the unemployed, underemployed, and low-skilled, with a particular focus on youth and women, which I think is very important to mention now, especially post-pandemic. While delivering quick and tangible benefits in terms of job creation and skills, the JPR promotes an enabling business environment as well as an inclusive and effective labor market governance in the longer term. This was also mentioned today by the panelists. This is essential for sustaining peace and resilience in conflict and crisis situations. And these key objectives are achieved only through institution building, respect, and promotion of fundamental principles and rights of work and social dialogue. The program also places a strong focus on youth and women, as I've already mentioned, given the specific challenges and the needs they face in situations of crisis, conflict, and disaster. Also very much highlighted by the recent pandemic. By simultaneously enhancing economic prospects, intergroup contact, and by addressing grievances of most of the vulnerable communities, the JPR projects aim to reinforce social cohesion and build resilience to future shocks. The ILO's long experience working in fragile and conflict settings have highlighted the importance and key role that the world of work plays in sustaining peace. And I think this is something that we must not forget, that the world of work, all the panelists that were here today have mentioned different aspects of this, whether it's the governments, the employers, and the workers. But all of this together is really key to ensuring that we're sustaining peace. A couple of weeks ago, our regional director for Africa mentioned that indeed peace building is everyone's business. And this guide presented today is an illustration of the key role of the skills and employment programs in building peace. And this guide supports TVET practitioners to strengthen their role as active promoters, as I think many of the examples that were provided today show, of social cohesion, peaceful coexistence, to be able to create an inclusive, conflict-sensitive, and diverse learning environment for all of us. As we know, COVID-19 has affected countries that were already in crisis before the pandemic. It is another crisis, really, on top of an existing protracted crisis. Employment and decent work initiatives, such as the efforts made to increase an understanding for the skills requirements to be able to achieve social cohesion, cross-curricular strategies to promote core skills, work-based learning, and how to measure impact, as was mentioned by one of our first speakers, is all part of this guide. They are key to addressing the socioeconomic recovery from COVID-19, but also to address potential grievances, discrimination, stigmatization over access to resources and livelihoods that the pandemic may cause. And a focus on employment and decent work with a peace-building lens can really help maintain and reinforce social cohesion and peaceful coexistence, not only during, but also after the COVID pandemic. This can contribute to prevent outbreaks of social tensions among communities and presence of refugees, IDPs, and host communities. And so the ILO has a significant role to play in the humanitarian development and peace nexus by being able to bring together governments, employers, and workers together and to respond to the call of our constituents. We can certainly leverage the positive change and demonstrate how the various sectors, such as those working in vocational training, businesses, for example, public infrastructure development, could work together towards collective goals and outcomes to make concrete contributions to address some of these socioeconomic inequalities that exist in the world today. The Centenary Declaration of the Future of Work confirms the need, and I quote, intensify engagement and cooperation with the multilateral system with a view to strengthening policy coherence in line with the recognition that decent work is key to sustainable development, addressing income inequality, ending poverty, paying special attention to areas affected by conflict, disaster, and other humanitarian emergencies. So working in this nexus really requires both rapid results, such as through peace dividends, and being able to plant the seeds that are needed for sustainability. And the ILO's role as a neutral facilitator, as was mentioned by one of our colleagues, is very much noted. So the discussion today clearly highlighted the importance of TVET based on an inclusive local participatory approach, something that is also very central to the ILO's JPR platform. And the panelists today highlighted how the guide allowed for better understanding of different labor market challenges, which are also affecting migratory flows, and how to include fragile communities in the discussion and in the decision-making, allowing for self-reflection and strengthening conflict management and being able to address these potential grievances. So I'd just like to leave you with 3 things that I hope this guide will do. First and foremost, I hope that the guide will help enhance employability and employment, especially for youth and women. Second, that it will allow for the integration of skills that are needed to find new employment opportunities and ensure that social cohesion can contribute to alleviating unnecessary tensions and avoid any worsening of pre-existing conflict dynamics. And finally, and hopefully, we hope, I think collectively, that this will prevent a vicious cycle where new pandemics and conflicts mutually end up reinforcing one another and could eventually lead to greater inequalities. So let me just conclude once again by thanking all of you for your time, your valuable insights, the great experiences that you've shared, and for helping shape this very important dialogue. I myself am very much looking forward to seeing the great results and how this guide will facilitate as a direct contribution to ILO's common agenda in sustaining peace, something that I believe we all believe in. So thank you very much. Back to you, Christine.
Thank you so much. We can call this webinar now closed. Maybe everyone wants to switch on the cameras just for a last group picture. Thanks again. Great pleasure having all of you join. Have a nice afternoon, rest of the day, morning, wherever you are.
Thank you, Christine. Bye-bye, colleagues.
Thank you, Christine. Good.
Thank you, everyone.
Go well, everyone.
Thank you, Christine.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay.